second this motion that this House approves the waiver of imports and duties to the tune of 23,983,033 United States dollars. Mr. Speaker, the business we are transacting in this House this afternoon should be done with regard to some matters that have transpired before Parliament was seized with this application. What is before us is an application from the company Platinum Properties, a special purpose vehicle jointly owned by the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund and Inter-Afrique Holdings Limited, which application has been routed or ferried through the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Executive, that is the Presidency. But Mr. Speaker, before arriving here, the country has been seized with a conversation which I believe this House can take notice of. That conversation is to the effect that His Excellency the President has so motu on his own granted a tax waiver to a company known as Platinum Properties Limited. Mr. Speaker, first of all, as we start this process, if indeed His Excellency the President has granted so motu a tax waiver, there will be no need for Parliament to be sitting here having this conversation. The process we are going through here this afternoon shows clearly that all of that commentary thrown into the public domain, that the President has granted a tax waiver to a company called Platinum Properties, is not true. Because, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the Constitution, no president on his own has the power to grant tax waiver to a company as we are doing today. Article 1742 of the Constitution, as was quoted by the minority leader, and Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I read, says, where an act enacted in accordance with clause 1 of this article confers power on any person or authority to waive or vary a tax imposed by that act, the exercise of that power or waiver of all variation in favor of any person or authority shall be subject to the prior approval of Parliament by resolution. What it means is that if anybody purports to grant a tax waiver, that person must come to this hallowed chamber and make an application. And if members here consider it fit for purpose, Parliament is the right body seized with the program this waiver. So, Mr. Speaker, as a first step, all of that commentary out there that His Excellency the President has on his own granted a tax waiver to a company and for whatever purpose, on the face of the record, is not true. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this application that we are considering is before us because the board of the GIPC, under Section 26(4) of the GIPC Act 865, finds favor with the application that that company has made. And that is why they have ferried it. It's a procedural ferry that comes to Parliament for Parliament to consider. If this House is of the view that they don't qualify, this House will reject it. There's precedent where this House has actually cut down people's requests. And so here, we are now seized with the ability to consider. But, Mr. Speaker, not only is this House being requested to consider and grant the approval if we find fit, this House is being asked to do something that has never been done in the history of this country under this Act 865. And that is when a company believes that it qualifies under Section 26(4), apply through the executive, let the executive come to Parliament and request on your behalf. Mr. Speaker, the report of the committee, and if I pray your indulgence to go to paragraph 4.7, is quite clear that the committee sought to note whether any investors have previously been granted strategic investor status and given benefits, including tax exemptions. To this, the committee was informed that on the 29th of April 2015, the then President, and Mr. Speaker, emphasis mine, that is President John Dramani Mahama, approved a similar strategic investor status and accompanying tax incentives for the following companies: Gassem Cement, Dream Reality Limited, Garden City Mall, Boston Investments, ShopRite Ghana, Vincent Sugar Refinery, Jata Cement, Mr. Speaker. Jata Cement. EcoBank Ghana Limited. Cement de l'Afrique. Mr. Speaker, further, on the 7th of January 2016, His Excellency, the then President, again emphasis mine, President John Dramani Mahama, gave approval for strategic investor status and tax exemptions for other companies, including Wilma Africa, West Hills Mall, Tang Palace, Mabani 7 Company, Sunot Asogli, and Quantum Power. Mr. Speaker, what your committee discovered is that these tax waivers were granted without recourse to Parliament. These tax waivers were granted without recourse to the constitutional provisions of Article 1742. Yes. And in the privilege of this hallowed chamber, I dare say that these waivers are unconstitutional. Yes. It is for that reason that we sought the counsel of the Honorable Attorney General, whether it is proper for any president or any minister of finance or any GIPC boss to sit in his office and so moto say that I deem that you qualify, therefore I've granted it to you. A power given to Parliament. And the Attorney General replied and said, no, Parliament must be seized with it to make the determination. That is why we are here today, Mr. Speaker. That is why your committee has had the opportunity to consider for the first time these applications that were hiding under Section 26(4) and were being granted by the executive for the first time, being brought to Parliament for Parliament to make a determination on it. Mr. Speaker, we want to serve notice that after today's approval, we will be considering recalling those waivers to be brought here for ratification, or requesting that the persons who granted them without recourse to Parliament should be invited before this House and possibly held in contempt for usurping the powers of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, reference to the specific request before us. This committee, Mr. Speaker, your committee agrees with the GIPC's board in its finding that the investment potential, the jobs that will accrue as a result of it, the income taxes, the corporate taxes that will be paid as a result of it, will be of benefit to the growth of the Republic, and therefore we support this application. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.